Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Place to Soar, where our motto is step out and redesign, and the focus is always on you. I'm your host, Anita Russell, and I have this lovely lady with me today. Her name is Shakira Abdul-Ali, and I'm going to start, as I normally do, by reading off her bio. The SOAR values that she selected are community and family and personal economy. Her areas of expertise include economic development, small business development, and organization development. She's an organization development professional, a trainer, and a coach with proven success in delivering business, organization, and personal effectiveness programs. She has supported institutions in generating value through business diversity programming, designing and managing change and organization learning, and building high-performance teams and work systems. Her professional background includes 17 years in the public sector, 15 plus years in the private sector as a principal of Alchemy Consulting, her own company. Her current projects include working as an associate with the Intersect Alliance Group, designing and delivering workshops to support cooperation and improve communication between police departments and local community groups and residents. Shakira happens to be a very good friend of mine, and so I'm very, very glad that you could be here on this episode of The Place to Soar.
I am so happy to be here. I was thrilled at the invitation. I'm so glad we reconnected at the event that we went to. I hope we'll talk about that a little bit, so I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who you are. I mean, I know I read your bio, but tell us the real story.
Yeah. The background, right? So I guess you asked me to select the two values, the values, and I could have selected any number of them.
Yes.
But I picked at this time in my life community and family relationships and personal economy because really it kind of sums up what I have been up to for most of my life. You know, all of my professional career has been in the area of development, but I actually started out before I got to college wanting to be a social worker because I thought that, you know, I wanted to help families. I don't even know why that was, but that was what I went to college to do. And then by the time I got to college, I realized and discovered that, oh, wait a minute, I probably need to look more closely at business because, you know, most people who are doing social work are probably just a paycheck away from the people with whom they work or for whom they work. So I didn't want that to be the case. So I kind of went into the area of development. I started out doing economic development, got my BA in economics and urban studies, and went from there to small business development, and went from there to organization development. You know, just kind of flowed. So that's pretty much what I do. Yeah,
so it's really funny when I think about how our paths crossed, like at different times. And the last time our path crossed was when we were in Washington, D.C. at the Sister Giant Conference, which was flat out amazing. Yes.
Powerful event.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about, number one, what prompted you to be there, and number two, what did you really get out of it?
Okay. So what prompted me to be there? So first of all, I guess we should say what it was. So Anita and I ran into each other at this wonderful event hosted by Marianne Williamson, who many people know as the woman who a lot of people credit Nelson Mandela for the words that she spoke when she talked about, you know, it's not that we're afraid of being. I can't remember the exact quote.
Yeah, but the whole our deepest fear.
Yeah, our deepest fear. Yes, that particular passage. But in any case, she organized. I think this was the third year that she organized this wonderful event called Sister Giant, And Sister Giant is an opportunity for women to come together and explore their own power and their own agency in community and in life. And I suppose that the recent election is what drove her to formulate this particular program around how do we address our higher spiritual selves while we engage in this political conversation in these political times.
Yes.
And I went because I was livid. I mean, I was just beside myself with anger over the results of this election.
Yes.
I was a Bernie Sanders supporter during the primary campaign, and was really trying to get people in the African American community, particularly Black women, to support Bernie Sanders. But I think he wasn't a known quantity in our community very long. I mean, I've been following him for years, because I'm a C-SPAN junkie. And I watch him rail against the powers that be for the last 20 years on C-SPAN. But for the most part, he's been an unknown quantity in the Black community because he pretty much serves his own constituency in Vermont. And so, but not that notwithstanding, he was one of the very first people in Congress. In fact, I think he might have been the first person in Congress to support Jesse Jackson's first run for the presidency in 1984, which I worked on the Jackson campaign that year. So again, I was aware of Sanders' support, but he joined the Rainbow Coalition, and he, supported the Jackson presidency for that year. And so, I've known of who he was for a long time, and I just was aware that, that for this particular election cycle, I just knew that that his message was the one we needed to hear.
Yes.
And so when he didn't win, I went with the Democratic candidate, and but I was still very angry.
Yes.
I was just really angry, and so I wanted to participate in this. I knew that I couldn't stay in that level of anger and function effectively doing what I do, and what I do, you read some of what I'm up to of late, is working in the community, working with organizations, working with small businesses, and really trying to help people find their own agency. And so I went to that conference to try to reconnect with my higher self. Remember that anger, we can only go so far with anger. And what I learned at the conference, and one of the things that I took away from that, I can't remember the woman's name who spoke about a Hindu goddess by the name of Kali.
Yes, I know.
You remember that story?
Yes.
Where, I don't know too much about Hinduism, but I do know that there are numbers of gods that they ascribe powers to. And Kali is a fierce woman who is always depicted as being very dark complexioned woman, mean, angry, just with I think she's holding snakes, and she looks dragged and just bedraggled and just full of rage. And what we learned about her is that rage was directed at kind of our lower self, because one of the things that we heard about her story is that she cuts off the heads of her victims. They're not really victims; they're her children, but she cuts their heads off to separate the earthly, kind of worldly thinking from the heart, because the heart is what we need right now. And that was just a powerful story for me. So I was thrilled to be there. I learned so much from the presenters and from the speakers, and connected with some beautiful spirits, and ran into you in the hall, chased you down actually.
That was very funny.
Yeah.
That was very funny.
Yeah, so anyway.
So, but I can kind of relate to part of what you were saying, because the morning after the election, like I fell asleep. I was determined to stay up. And when I fell asleep, I was like, okay, it's going to be okay. And then when I woke up, I was literally stunned in the morning when I realized what the outcome and everything was. And to your point, I felt a lot of emotion inside of me as an African American, as a woman, as a grandmother of a 9-year-old African American boy, and what is life going to look, you know, all of these things were just kind of rushing through me all at the same time. And I needed, pretty much the same as you, I needed some sort of outlet to be able to say, or to come back to myself and be able to say, okay, these are some things that you can do to empower all of that energy that you were feeling and put it into something meaningful, is what it boiled down to. And I had the opportunity to kind of meet Marianne Williamson not more than like a week or two before that event. I just happened to go to this event in New York, and she was a speaker. And the Sister Giant Conference is one of the things that she talked about, and I was just drawn in. Like I went home and just registered. And that sort of thing. So yeah, I can definitely relate to some of that sentiment. You just woke up feeling disoriented or something about everything, and just like, I got to do something is how I felt.
Yeah. That evening it was unreal for me. I watched the whole unfolding, and you know, and as state after state came in with him at the top of the ticket, and I was like, oh my God. This is what I was afraid of. This is exactly what I was afraid of. And so I was just really angry. And, you know, and even though, you know, the march that occurred in Washington, D.C., initially I was going to go. But I was angry. I think I was just angry with our white women our white sisters, because I was like, you know, we did our job. Black women came out for the Democratic ticket. And I was just angry. But then, you know, when they called on us to gather wherever we were in the country, I said, okay, well, I will, you know, I will be in the streets of Trenton.
In Trenton,
you know, to express my anger and upset with the way that this has happened. But, you know, there's a silver lining in this event. I mean, I think, you know, it's unfolding. It continues to unfold.
Absolutely.
The silver lining that is the awakening of community, because you know, we now recognize that you know, democracy is not a spectator sport. We have a responsibility. You know, we have a responsibility to come out and take hold of what's going on in our community.
So that's actually a good segue into some of the things that you specifically do in the community. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So as I said, like I picked personal economy because, like I said, I've been doing development for most of my professional life. I work with small businesses, and I'm really thrilled at about one of the projects that I've just recently taken on. I work with a company in Teaneck, New Jersey called Armand Resource Group. It's a small minority-owned, Black African-American-owned company. It's small, but we've got business all over the country. We do mostly contract compliance work, meaning companies that get contracts with mostly public sector agencies, mostly transportation agencies. When they get federal money, they are required to do business with disadvantaged and minority and women-owned companies, and our company does the monitoring and the compliance.
Oh, I see.
For that, for those projects. So I make it my business to make sure that those companies get their paperwork in on time, they get paid on time, they are incorporated into the project effectively, and that the companies themselves, the minority and women-owned companies themselves, are able to increase in value in terms of the knowledge that they get, not just the work that they deliver onto the project, but that they actually have some intellectual, property that they can take away from that intellectual value that they take away from the project.
Oh,
so that's one of the things that I do. But very recently we got a contract with New York City to work with all of the agencies in New York, all the municipal agencies, to help those agencies expand their work with women and minority-owned companies. So we'll go in and we'll actually get a chance to work with the buyers, the procurement agents, the purchasing agents, the contract managers, and so forth, and really help them to find ways to expand the way that they do business with women and minority-owned companies. It's really exciting. I'm very happy about that. I also work with an alliance, the Intersect Alliance, as you mentioned, and this is something that's very near and dear to me. About 2 years ago, a friend of mine, another organization development consultant, happens to be a Jewish woman, called me and said she was bringing together a group of consultants, OD consultants, who have an interest in addressing the painful things that we've seen, that we've witnessed unfold, the violence that has occurred between police and people in the community, where police shootings have resulted in deaths that have gone unanswered. I mean, as far as the Black community is concerned, Black and brown community communities are concerned. And so we decided that we would put together a series of workshops that we could work with the police and support the police departments in working with the communities they serve. And we started doing this work. One of our colleagues, who is a partner in this alliance with us, is a Puerto Rican brother from, I think he's from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Comes out of the steel industry, and was doing union organizing, but so he kind of has that, that kind of cultural background that is very similar to what police have. Anytime you're in a union, it's a, we're all in this together, and it's kind of a very closed ranked kind of a community. But in any event, we've worked together with a group called the National Coalition Building Institute. This is the group that we've done a lot of diversity training with. But he was called into the Allentown community. Allentown, at that point, the NAACP of Allentown had like 3 lawsuits against their police department.
Oh, wow.
It was really bad. I mean, they had it was just a really, really bad situation. But after a couple of years of Guillermo, his name is Guillermo Lopez, after a few years of Guillermo's work with the Allentown Police Department, there was an occasion where it was kind of some sort of a awards event, and the NAACP president had reason to stand up and acknowledge that that at that point in time they were loving their police their police department. They had a very good relationship with the police. I mean, everything was very much different than it was when he was called in.
Oh, okay.
So we're using the methodology that he has worked with, and we're continuing some work in Pennsylvania. We recently did some work with the Mantua community in Philadelphia, and we're looking to do some work in other communities.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So I want to shift a little bit because one of the things, the other thing that you chose and talked about is personal economy.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of the, in the definition of personal economy, it talks about the fact that people are really caught up in this national economy and, and jobs and unemployment and all of that. But I also happen to believe, and I'm sure you do too, that people also have to be really focused on their own personal economy in terms of how they're, generating income, how they're managing and stewarding over what they have and all of that. So if you could talk a little bit about more on an individual
Right.
basis what a personal economy means to you.
Sure, yeah. So, as I said, I've been doing this small business development work for a long time. But at this stage in my life, I mean, I have 4 adult children, 2 grandchildren, hope to have more grandchildren, right? But I'm kind of looking at our family like, I want us to have I want to be able to shift the trajectory of wealth
Yes.
in my family.
Absolutely.
You
Yes.
know, like we come to, we are, we kind of operate on a particular level for, and if things aren't horrible, then we kind of just skate along and kind of shift along. But especially given these times, I really want to shift how my family operates. Like, I don't want them to have to think about, am I going to be able to go to school?
Yes.
Am I going to
Yes.
be able to fund a
Yes.
business? Am I going to be able to contribute to the causes and the charities and the organizations that I care about, that support my community in particular ways? I mean, I see you have some beautiful artwork here on in your studio, and I mean, artists deserve to be supported.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, I want to
Absolutely.
have some of this on my wall. $300, $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. These are investments in our spirit and our soul, and they cost money, right? So I feel like I want that for my family, and I want it for all of the families that touch me, that are in my neighborhood, that are
Yes,
in
yes.
my community, my town, my county, I want that. It's one of the reasons I'm sure that I really appreciate network marketing, and
Yeah.
relationship marketing. People say, oh, that's just a scam. No, it's an opportunity for each of us to share our income and and invest in each other while we are taking care of various needs in our community. I think we met because you were selling me some makeup or something.
Yes.
Right? Right? Because this is how
This
I
is
think
how
it,
we do
this
it.
is how
Yes.
this is how we
Yes.
grow.
Yes.
We don't grow ourselves unless we are exchanging energy with each other one way or another.
Yes.
And money is just a form of energy. It's a powerful form of energy. And but it is, it's just energy.
Yes.
And if we can just share that with each other, then we are so much better off. I'm better off when your household is safe
Exactly.
and stable and secure.
Exactly.
Because then, I can let my little granddaughter hang out with your grandson and not be worried about what is going on in your household.
Yes,
I know
yes.
everything is fine and stable. So when I think of personal economy, it's really community. It's really community economy. I want to shift the trajectory.
Yes.
I mean, and particularly, in the Black community, I think wealth creation is a revolutionary act. I mean, we got here because of being property for other people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, we have to shift our relationship, our psycho-spiritual relationship with wealth and money and income, because we came here as a form of capital.
Yes.
So, we have this very, almost pathological relationship with money and wealth and income. And, when I say I want to get rich, people look at me, with kind of side eye, like, this is not something that's really cool. It's not, it's not ethical or moral to think you want to be wealthy. No, I think it is.
Yeah.
Moral and it is morally and ethically appropriate for me to want to be wealthy, because I can't do anything for you if I'm struggling
If you
myself.
don't have the resources.
Yeah, if I'm
Exactly.
struggling myself,
Exactly.
what can I do for you? I can just share my struggle with you. You don't need that. You got your own struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So this is so that's how I think about it. That's really kind of how I think about it. It feels like it's a micro conversation, but really it's a macro conversation.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I definitely agree wholeheartedly
Yeah.
with that. And then a lot of what you just said actually relates to another one of the SOAR values, which is legacy.
Yeah.
So I look at it, the personal economy piece is going to feed into what my legacy looks like. So I mentioned my grandson.
Right.
I only have one.
Uh-huh.
I'm waiting for
God
more.
willing.
But again, when I saw the results of the election, my grandson was the first person that I thought of. Like, how is this going to impact his future?
Yes.
And as things began to unfold with the different people in the cabinet, the education and all of that, it's just a whole host of things. So I literally was talking to my kids the other day, and I said to them, we need to come together as a family, and we're pooling all of our resources because we need to have a strategy in place to be able to stockpile what we're going to need to ensure that however things go to the right or to the left, that my grandson is going to be able to, he's going to be okay. He's going to go to school. He's going to get the education. He's going to get the skills. He's going to get the knowledge, all of those things that I know he's going to need. So that feeds directly into legacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have the same goals in our family. My daughter and my grandchildren will be relocating from Georgia up this way for a while. She likes Georgia, so I think she may go back. But she's coming up this way so that we can kind of, pool our family resources.
Yes.
And really kind of have this conversation about what will we build, what economic unit will we build together. And that she can participate. My grandchildren, I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and my youngest daughter is out in California. We'll get her back here another time. She's doing her own thing. She's doing her own thing for right now. But the idea is to establish some business that we will all be able to grow and to take advantage of. And also, the other thing that I want to create is an educational institution for an educational foundation for my family. And when I say my family, I mean anybody who is related to me by blood or by marriage, whether the marriage is intact or not, because I've had 1 or 2 of those.
Yes, yes.
But if you are related to me, I want you to be able to not be concerned about whether or not you can afford an education. I don't care what it is. Technical school, associate's degree, graduate degree. I don't care what it is. If you're related to me, I want you to be able to know that you will be able to get educated. And that's what I think is the basis. That's the kind of the basis of wealth. But those are the things that I'm looking to do as well.
That's very powerful.
Yeah. And
I think you talk about that awakening. I think as more and more people become awakened to our current situation, and sort of like what we did, sort of let's go back and reevaluate and then come up with a different scenario because our circumstances that are around us are changing in a very dramatic way that could have a negative impact on certain members of our community and things like that. So really just kind of speaking very powerfully in terms of how we want that legacy to end up looking like.
Absolutely. One of the so are we? So if I can just share quickly one concept that I kind of hold out there as a vision. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mondragon region of Spain.
No.
So this was when I was doing my studies and I was learning about economic development, I learned about this particular region in Spain where every institution in the region is a cooperative. The schools are co-ops, the hospitals are co-ops, all the stores are co-ops, the libraries are co-ops, the banks are co-ops, everything is a co-op. So every person in the community who interacts with one or another of those institutions is an owner in that institution. And if they leave the institution, then they sell their shares to the incoming
got it.
participants.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you're in high school, when you're a senior, you sell your shares to the incoming freshmen.
Okay, we got like about 30 more seconds.
Oh, okay.
So can
yes.
you just, what is that last nugget of wisdom
Yeah.
that you want to leave with our audience?
So I think the last nugget of wisdom would be find yourself a way of expanding your personal economy, and a way that embraces something you care about, whatever you value, and that you can share with people in your family and your community.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you next time at the Place to Soar. Bye-bye.